Hey everyone, it's Lucid, and I've got a pretty important announcement to make for me, and that is that I'm making a new YouTube channel. I had tried to make another one a couple years ago, and basically I just wanted to have a place to put a video up about COVID. We were on to that stuff early. We knew it was going to be a big deal real early. I think like end of January, very, very beginning of February, we were like, this is going to be a big deal. And by, I think, February 4th, I started making the videos, and I put it up February 6th. And I was like, guys, this is going to be a big, big deal. And I have to say, I think we nailed it. If you want to go back and check those videos out, I'll have a link in the description. But that's not what this announcement is for. This announcement is for my new channel, which is going to be Curious Mammal. And yeah, I've put a ton of time into this already, and I'm going to be putting a lot more time into it. We're going to be doing, I think, one video every week. At least that's what I'm going to try to do. And we're going to cover things that are interesting to me. So we're going to start off. The first thing I really wanted to talk about was I wanted to talk about the Russian-Ukrainian conflict and the diplomacy specifically behind it. And really get into it, because I feel it's something that doesn't get covered well enough. Like, you're either in the West and you're listening to all like the Western media and you kind of get this version of events, or you're like in Russia and you're in like that umbrella and you're getting all that media. And I just wanted to like really dive into what is the actual situation? What are the different parties asking for? What are the things they're willing to compromise on? What is the things they're not willing to compromise on? And to really just look at all the negotiations. And anyway, it's something that was interesting to me. It's something that also resonates a lot with me as a Dominions player, where you're spending a ton of your time doing diplomacy. So I wanted to do that, but to do it, I didn't know enough context. Like, I didn't know enough about the history of Ukraine. I didn't know enough about the history of Russia to really talk with any kind of authority on the diplomacy. And you have to understand all that. If you don't understand the history, you can't talk about the diplomacy. So, I mean, of course, you can always, everybody's allowed to have an opinion on anything, right? But you know what I mean. So this first video that's going to be going up on Curious Mammal, I'll flash through these slides really quick. But the first video that's going to be going up is going to be the history of Ukraine and Russia from 1600 to 1900. And so in 1600, there was no Ukraine, right? It was just Poland and Russia and the Crimean Khanate and the Ottoman Empire, right? And so we're going to follow kind of the like, what were all the groups that were in the area that's modern Ukraine? What were they? And how much were they really part of Poland or Russia? Or were they more independent? We'll be talking about all of that. And then, you know, in 1650, like a portion of Ukraine, the Cossack Hetmanate, they rebelled and they had their own independent state. We're going to talk about what all that meant. And about the Great Northern War and how, Ukraine switched sides and what that all meant. I've got this, it's going to be a great video, right? We're going to go through all of it, including the Napoleonic Wars, where Moscow was burned to the ground. And there's I think it's really interesting looking at all this. And Russia is a really special country because it is, aside from Great Britain, in Europe, we're going to call Russia Europe. I don't really know what the convention is, whether you call it European or not, but, whatever. It hasn't been conquered since the time of the Mongols in like the 13th century. England hasn't been conquered since the 11th century, but Russia, they haven't been conquered by foreign invaders. Even Napoleon getting all the way to Moscow, right? They had defeated many Russian armies. Moscow burned, and then Napoleon returned to the West. It's a really interesting story. And looking at, I think when you look at the Napoleonic Wars, and later we're going to look at World War II, it will really help to frame like geopolitical strategy for Russia and how they think about defense in depth. And so that's something we're going to talk about in this video. Really excited to talk about it. Talk about the Congress of Vienna and the parceling of Europe. We'll talk about Europe right before the outbreak of World War I, Then we'll talk about the Bolshevik revolutions and what that meant. Because actually, and that's going to be something that, is really interesting. And like it could be a whole thing in and of itself, just the Bolshevik revolution. But we're going to talk about specifically what that means to Ukraine and to the relationship between Ukraine and Russia, and then the Russian civil wars that took place. It just is really interesting. And I've spent so many hours making all these maps. It's taken me forever. But I think you really need these maps to be able to look at to really understand the history, and then to talk about the diplomacy. So, we'll finish with, the Nazi, not finish, we'll go through the Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union. And at this point, you can see like most of Ukraine was conquered by the Germans. We'll talk about what that meant, like to actually have German occupation of Ukraine. Of course, it was a pretty rough time. And then the end of World War II, and then, the Warsaw Pact, the formation of NATO, and we'll talk then about the expansion of NATO, which is certainly really important. And I think as a Dominions player, which is, this video going out to you guys to let y'all know about my new channel, I think this is all going to resonate, because you're thinking about some of this too from a position of, not just today, but like how are we going to defend ourselves in 10 or 20 years? And at some point, we want to be able to put ourselves into the mind of the Western powers, into the minds of Europe. And we also want to be able to put ourselves into the mind of the Russian leaders, like put ourselves into the mind of Vladimir Putin, and really understand what they're thinking. So we're going to go through the expansion of NATO. And then once we've done all the history, then we're going to start talking about all of the negotiations, that led up to the conflict. And there's a ton of stuff there. So we'll probably have, probably 2 videos, stuff that happened before the conflict, immediately before, starting with Euromaidan, and then stuff that happened after. So anyway, if you are interested, please, 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 if this interests you at all, go over and check out this other channel. Watch that video. If you love me, watch it all the way through, even if you wouldn't anyways. But I hope I've put a ton more time. It's way higher production value than I do for any of the videos on this channel. So I hope you notice that and appreciate it. And I hope you want to subscribe so that you can see all the videos that I put out there in the future. So yeah, please go and check it out. I'll be shilling this new channel probably a few times, and don't hate me for it. It's really hard to start a new YouTube channel. Like anybody, I know there's a lot of people who have put up like 1 or 2 Dominions videos, and it's really hard. Like the algorithm doesn't pick you up. It's really hard to start a new channel. And so if you would all do me the favor of going there, if you like it, give it the thumbs up, watch the whole thing. All those things factor into the algorithm for whether it recommends it to new people. And it's really hard starting, so I would really appreciate it. And like I said, forgive me for shilling this, because I'll be shilling it a few more times. I think what I might do too is I was thinking about this like a few minutes ago before I recorded this, which I probably should do some more national overviews than I would normally do, because I'm kind of to have the motivation to do this new project. I've kind of taken a step back from gaming, and I'll do a talk about that. I want to share all that experience and kind of how it happened. And so I'll talk about that in the future, maybe in like a month or 2. I already have kind of mentioned it with the tournament announcement, but what I think I may do, though, is I might do a few more national overviews. Like I have a few really good ones that I want to do, too. Some really good national overviews, but I'm going to shill my new channel when I'm doing those national overviews at the beginning. So apologies in advance. I'll do my Hail Marys and beg for repentance. But please go out, check it out. I hope you like it. And I'll see you guys in that channel. Take care, guys.